Mandy because she was our last permanent employee there, if you will, as opposed to having a interim. Tax collector Peter, and then the town clerk, Mr. Laternis.
Gotcha.
So if you look at their pays, it comes out to an average of 74. And if you think finance isn't a fair adjustment, if you take it out, it's actually, the average is 74 for, that one is at 75%. It's really not gonna make any significant difference in that. The good news is, depending on what you determined, or hopefully determined, could be an increase for her. As Jason mentioned earlier, we've been without a clerk in our office for 14 weeks now. I have a meeting next week to see if we're going to finally move forward and fill that. And the wages that have been unused for the last 14 weeks total about $12,800. So as long as you keep it under that amount, I think we can pay for that this year. So there'd be no impact to my 26 budget, but moving forward for next year's budget, you would have to increase her salary line, if you will, to compensate for the difference next year. So there'd be no adverse effect this year because we're paying for it out of the wages we haven't used for our open position.
And that, John, is to date, so even if you were told you could hire somebody, this is money that's already been saved.
Correct.
through the thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
the position's been vacant for 14 weeks, it's $900 a week, comes out to $12,800.
Okay,
So if we were to go from the 69, 196, and we took it up to the averages, somewhere around the 78, we'd be looking at around a 9,000 increase, and we'd have 12,800 to cover that for this year.
okay, and first off, I wanna say congratulations, Aubrey, good work. We're very happy that you've been able to do that. And generally, I know, the board doesn't like to do any mid-year appropriations, but you were told last year when you wanted to put it in your budget, come back once it's been passed, and that's why you're coming back now,
As instructed.
as instructed, okay. So, I will ask, does anybody have any questions on this item?
No question, I mean, comments, but no questions.
Okay, comments is good.
You know, I agree, it was suggested for you to come back, and the presentation is great, and I just wanna clarify, this is not, these comments are not about the individual, right? It's not even about, it's just about I guess, the process. For me, one big thing that has changed from when you were here in, whatever it was, February, March, or April, whenever that discussion took place, and now is between tonight's meeting and the last Board of Finance meeting, which you may not have been at. The things that I hear for the budget as a whole, right? We have salary issues, we have police overtime issues, we have property and liability insurance issues, we have medical insurance issues, right? Someone's raising their hand, there's a problem, but there's no solution. Nobody's offering up a solution. Nobody's saying, hey, here's an idea on how to maybe pull some of that back, spending freezes, et cetera. There's no discussion of that, and that's what makes me concerned. I would say the same comment if any of these assistants were here, any of them. It's not about the person. So, yes, I agree with Patty that generally, the Board of Finance does not do, at least in my time, they don't do mid-year salary adjustments. I'm not saying it's never been done, but I think it's probably few and far between. But given the recent information that I've heard, right, if someone were to say, hey, we have some problems that I just talked about, but here's a way to sort of fix them or get them under control, it's a different story. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not hearing that. So for me, I am apprehensive about moving forward with something like this. I congratulate you, it's awesome, but it's just me. It's not a question, just want you to know where I stand.
Well, something else has changed since you said that, yes. We have not had an employee in our position, so it is not a additional expense to the town this year.
Yeah.
It is something we are covering within my budget.
Agreed, I agree. But there's other expenses that I'm hearing, we're not gonna,
But that's
we're not gonna be
That's
able to
outside of my
cover.
control of my budget.
Exactly,
Right.
it is, I agree.
Right. And we're also looking at another factor here. I'm not gonna be here forever.
right? None of us are.
No, so.
Hold your
looking
applause,
at-
hold your applause. None of us, none of us
I'm sure
are.
there's plenty that would love to see it go.
Yeah, me too.
But we're looking at succession planning here. We have a
Okay.
very capable employee. She's
Mhm.
qualified to step into the role at any point. And I think we should do what is necessary to keep that person. She knows the town. She's very familiar with the process. She's wonderful at what she does. She's an expert on all the computer systems that are necessary to do this. And at this point, if you look at the postings that I have, you know, and you can say it's a bigger town, but this is our competition.
Mhm.
Windsor has got a job right now for $88,000 with a 5% increase after 6 months. She could be making $92,000 if she wants.
Yep, understood.
So I think, thinking about succession planning, when you have a very capable person second in line, that we should be doing something to make sure that person is feeling like they're wanted and that they're next, and that they can move up, and there is advancement. I talked to the first selectman, and he has assured me that he is very promote from within happy.
Yep.
So. That's the next question we have, which is a different topic, is filling this other position, because if you don't fill that, and then that person, whoever moves into my position when I retire in X amount of years,
Yep.
it's not gonna have anyone trained underneath them, and they're gonna have nothing.
Yep.
So our office is at a critical juncture right now, and we need to do something to stay short of.
Good points. Thank you.
But John, if we went to, this increase at the moment, based on the fact that you have the 12,000 unspent, and made that decision prior to the new fiscal year budget, then at that point, we can't add salaries to anybody after that. But your argument was that in rebuttal to Mike's comment, that you have the money, so you wouldn't be asking for additional money.
Correct.
But then you mentioned that you want to fill that position.
Yes, but the money is coming out of wages that have not been spent over the last 14 weeks. We've been without that position. That money is still in my budget,
I see.
so that
So
money
you-
would fund
it's
any
accumulated.
increases at this
Gotcha.
point.
So I have a question, just, this I think because I'm a little bit newer to this, so basically if this $12,000 wasn't spent, say we didn't increase the salary or whatever, this $12,000 wasn't spent, where else would we use the $12,000? Like, does it stay in the budget, or does it get transferred to somewhere else, or how does, I guess, why not spend it versus why spend it? Like, where does the money go if it, is my question. Just being a newer person. I think it's just a
My
general-
understanding is, in my budget, I can't touch salary lines. I can't say, oh, I wanna take money out of salaries and buy a new machine that'll help me out in the field. I can't buy a new laser pointer or laser measurer to go out in the field, because it would have to come out of salaries. I can't touch the salary lines, so that money, to me, is just frozen. If the town do
Board
something.
of Finance could authorize a transfer.
They could. But
Afterwards.
again, we're not asking for all of it either, it's just.
There's no transfer required, there are the three people in the Department of Budget in the same line. So, like if nothing changed, right, and our budget was perfectly accurate, we would end up with an extra $12,000 in that account at the end of the year. I'm not sure what the Board of Finance would be voting on if there was a motion, but a transfer is not what.
Well, we're
would be
not
voted-
talking about
yeah.
voting on the transfer. The transfer talk was, if at the end of the year the money was still there, could it be transferred to someplace else at that point, which we could.
Yep.
And Sean's question was, if it doesn't get spent, does it just go away, or does it sit there and not roll over to the next year, so.
Or like, what's the benefit of keeping it or not keeping it, like, how does that, like, where does that 12,000 play out if it's
Yep.
not spent?
So as Con said, at the end of the year, we could transfer it to a different line, when we were closing out all the accounts at the end of the year.
But within the assessor budget.
Within the assessor's budget.
No, anyway.
Anywhere.
Oh, right, cause we've done that before with the, different accounts of,
Close out
in
the fiscal
fiscal
year.
use if we needed to.
Yeah, close out the fiscal year.
Yeah, What would actually be the process, cause it's not a transfer, Jason, you're right. What would actually be the process? Are we as the Board of Finance allowed to approve a mid-year salary increase? Does that have to go through HR, or how does that actually work,
So-
you know?
So I think, and this is just based on my historical observations, I haven't read through the charter or whatever it might be, but just generally, staffing, raises, those types of things, whether positions filled or not filled, is based upon the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen are the ones who do that, to either approve to hold something or not hold something. I had recommended, and John is aware of this, I had recommended to the prior first selectman to hold on hiring until we had a very clear picture from an enrollment standpoint, medical self-insurance. That was my big concern this year, and I don't think it's any surprise to the Board of Finance that I'm also very concerned regarding the police overtime line, that historically, it ends up over budget by a significant amount. So, those are I would say that's the flip side of the coin of availability of funds.
Thank you, Jason. When we decided to vote last year, the year before, whenever it was, to increase the building department from a part-time to a full-time position, we voted to do that. Do you remember, did they then have to go to the first selectman?
I don't believe they did.
So it sounds like if we voted to say, yes, we approve this, it wouldn't have to go anyplace else.
I would agree.
It would be put into effect.
It being a salary increase.
Correct.
Just the point of information, that included that there was a transfer made to put the dollars into that position. The Board of Selectmen had voted to move that forward to you, but it required a transfer. There wasn't enough money in the general salary line for that position.
And that's why it came to us?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have had to come to us otherwise?
I mean, a wise selectman would let you guys know, hey, I'm changing something, there might be a budgetary impact, that sort of stuff. But, you know, there was a transfer when we moved Renault from part-time to full-time.
So now I'm trying to figure out, John, whether we have the authority to do it or not. If we took a vote and said, yes, we want to agree to this, does it still then have to go to the first selectman to actually implement it? And Mike, you're thinking that?
I don't think so.
All right, I guess I would ask if anybody, if anybody wants to make a motion to approve this, in a second, and we can vote on it. And I guess it's gonna have to be contingent, cause you disagree with that we have,
That's between the selectmen and the Board of Finance. I'm only giving you a historical perspective. It's my understanding that the Board of Finance handles the dollar sides of things, and the operations of the organization is handled by the selectmen. If
Right.
there's a change to this or modification to this at any one time, that would be
well,
between
this
the
is
Board
the
of
dollar.
Finance,
Yeah, this is the dollar side of it, so,
I would just like to restate that I'm here upon your request. You told me to come back, and now if you deny this, I mean, I will be befuddled. I mean, why would you tell me?
not if we denied voting on it, if we denied the actual raise itself, if we denied voting on it. No, I get it, I wasn't the chairman then, I didn't tell you to come back. So I'm asking the questions to make sure that we're doing the proper thing. Cause if we made a motion and it was voted on and approved, and then it couldn't go anywhere, that doesn't help, so I wanna make sure we're doing the right
Oh,
thing.
I think we gotta go back. If the second half of that is go back to the Board of Selectmen and ask them, once you said it was a yes, I don't find it.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a hard sell.
okay, all right. So I will ask them, does anybody wish to make a motion to push this forward?
Let me ask Jason a question here. Jason, what precisely are you saying the selectmen have to approve?
So, the selectmen don't have to approve anything. The first selectman would say yes to a hire. If the selectmen wanted to give a $5,000 raise to John, or a $9,000 raise to, I don't know, Devin, or whatever it might be, other than the fact that to some degree there are guidelines that we have set forth, the selectman, the first selectman theoretically, I believe, has the power to be able to do that. Now, I think a wise selectman might operate with the board of selectmen to be able to address that situation. A situation might be, hey, we are about to lose our finance director, would probably be the most recent time that the board of selectmen thought about taking up changes in salary mid-year, right? This would be a couple of years ago where they talked about it. And that the board of selectmen did come, whether it was unofficially or officially, to just approach the board of finance and let them know, hey, I'm making a mid-year course correction, you guys good? Sort of conversation. I wasn't privy to the conversation, it was before I was here. But generally, there would be that communication, right? So I think the ability to be able to say yes to changing an employee's salary rests with the first selectman. The first selectman could make that. A first selectman might choose to bring it to the selectman to be able to disclose that and have a discussion about it. That way there was a unified front to be able to do that and have that go that way. None of that would require the Board of Finance's approval if the dollars were in place to do that. If for some reason the dollars weren't, it would be, hey, the selectmen vote to give, insert an assistant department head or department head, whoever it might be, from a change standpoint, and then would refer that for a transfer to the Board of Finance. So that would generally be what occurred with Renault, where we transferred line items from within the board of, or the building department's budget to like certain salary lines into Renault's salary, the full-time salary line. They waited until partway through the fiscal year, which is not unlike what we're doing here, right? Because we're halfway through the fiscal year. It's not the total impact, right, of a salary adjustment, what might occur. I'm sort of torn because I know how it has operated in the past, but I don't want to tell you that this is the way it has to operate. This would be something worked out between the selectmen and the Board of Finance. From a motion, the dollars already exist in the budget. There's no transfer required. The dollars sort of sit there. So I think this sort of sits with the selectmen to be able to approve. You can make a motion that the selectmen concern it, address it, give your blessing for it, that sort of stuff, but I'm not sure you can direct the Board of Selectmen to give somebody a raise.
So I think the way that I'm understanding from what Jason is saying is that because the funds are already technically there in that line item, it's really up to the Board of Selectmen to say, yes, we wanna give them a raise, or no, we don't wanna give them a raise. It's not up to the Board of Finance, because we're not trying to find the money or transfer the money from one spot to another, because it's already in that line item. Is what I'm understanding. I think
For
that's-
this fiscal year only though,
Correct.
right?
He would have to come in front of us next
Yeah,
year with his
exactly.
budget,
Yeah.
with that increase in there.
And the fact that we're discussing succession planning and that sort of stuff, that is amazing. That is the best. That's the proactive way to manage your town.
Okay, so then I think what'll happen, the next step is that John and I will talk with the first selectman and give him an update on the discussion that we had and talk through the possibilities of it. Does that work for you?
I don't know what other choice I have.
Yeah. All right, so, let's get on his calendar and we'll, meet with him this week. All right, if he's still here when I leave, I'll talk to him. All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time, sorry, it wasn't as brief as we had hoped.
Does anybody need a break?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna take 5 minutes. Is capital projects discussion. Where this came out of was, Mark Whitten and I had been talking about the fact that what was voted down in the referendums last year was about 1.75 million of capital that was not going to be from any tax increases. The bonding was the other part too, but specifically this 1.75 was going to come from different funds. And we thought maybe we should look at that again before we get into 27 budgets to see if there's anything we could approve now to happen within the next 6 months, before the next budgets come along. One of Con's questions tonight was about whether we can really do that or not from the same funds, we'll have to find information. But what I had asked the department heads to do was, look at what your capital requests were as part of that 1.75 million. Come back and tell me what you would want, what your request would be. At the same time, Jason, Mark, John, and I don't know if Jim was part of that or not, met and did some capital discussion, and the first selectman had some items that they wanted to add to their list too. So we're gonna do a few presentations here to talk about the capital requests for current year of the different departments. And the first one we're gonna do is the Board of Ed. What they were approved for when we sent, the Board of Finance approved and sent to referendum, were the North Street School chimney, oil tank replacement contractual, that's the one at Public Works that you share with the bus company, right? 200,000 was approved for that, 93,000 for the chimney. And technology replacement, the Chromebooks, 61,712. And again, that was what the Board of Finance approved to send to a town vote, and it was voted down at the town vote. All right, so Sean Parkhurst and
Yep,
Ellis
so-
Ariel here to talk to us.
So we have three kind of buckets for you. So when we looked at what we wanted to bring forward with you to you so that we could possibly put that through, as Patty said, for the next 6 months and not bring it for fiscal year 27 ask. First one is North Street chimney, which I know you don't have copies of, but Patty does. And I know Jason has it up there on the screen. There is a quote behind the backup of what Jason has there for $99,975,000. And that is, to complete we did the partial roof replacement in 24-25. So this would complete that project, for the other portion of the chimney restoration. So that's the first one there. And Greg Wiegert is here, once I go through the first two, if you have any questions around those two, and then I'll talk about the technology. The second one, Jason, if you scroll just a little bit further, the second one is, we had also a lawnmower replacement at South Street School. That is $14,133,000. This is a 20-year-old lawnmower, believe it or not. We can no longer really even get any parts to replace it. So we're pushing this forward so that potentially we wouldn't have to bring this as an ask for fiscal year 27. And that is what is the second one there. So I'll pause there. So if you have any questions in either one of those two, Greg Wiegert can answer any of those two questions before I go to the technology piece. Can we keep going, Patty? Okay. Technology. So technology is an interesting one because we always run the risk of, much like when you were talking with the fire department, that if we fall out of a cycle, we fall out of a replacement cycle and it's really hard to catch up. So what we have, and you probably, Patty, I don't know if you have, you will.
Yep, and it's up on the screen.
Jason has it there. Okay, I do have one extra one if somebody wants that. So this one is a total of $190,235. And this is a variety of things. So this is continuing with a cycle of replacement that went through, we have a strategic planning group we have 3 buckets of our strategic planning group that is working this year. The facilities and operations group, which Elba sits on, as well as another board member and members of our community. So this has gone through that group as well. And it has some teacher replacement Chromebooks. It also has student replacement Chromebooks at 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 8th grade, and also has some clear touch panels, which are the presentation flat devices, presentation in the classroom. So it continues around that cycle of replacement. Again, Andrew Goodwin is here, I think he's somewhere, there he is, he moved on me. If you have questions around that. The reason that you don't have the backup behind that is because, like most technology prices, the prices fluctuate on a month-to-month basis, depending on when you get the quote. But we certainly have the backup when we got these quotes, so we used an average price from how the quotes have kind of fluctuated a little bit. And I can break that down further if you want, but it is broken down in the quote that you see there. For example, the Chromebooks for North Street School for teacher replacement, we're looking at 60 of those units. Teacher replacement Chromebooks at the middle school, we're looking at 100. And again, these are well past the life of the usage because we've fallen out of a cycle. The 3rd and 8th grade Chromebooks, those we're looking at 230 to be replaced, 12 of the flat projection clear touch panel replacements, and then for 2nd grade Chromebooks, we're looking at 103 to keep in that. And again, when we fall out of a cycle, we're trying to play catch up a little bit. So those are our 3 capital requests we'd like you to consider. Again, we can answer any questions you might have around them.
And let me just say, the reason that the Chromebooks are in there at 190,000 is because the 200,000 that we approved for the oil tank replacement is not needed. That money came from the bus company.
In a variety, yes, in a variety of agreements, yeah, it was in the contract with the bus company, they cover that, it's an expense from the bus company.
So I did ask Sean to, because we, as the Board of Finance, had approved that 200,000, I asked him to say what technology or what capital items he needed that would use that 200,000, so. Okay, comments? Questions?
Well, this is another 200,000, right? Not specifically then designated capital, but we had tied these things into.
So you're going back to your question of,
What it was. yeah.
once it was voted down,
Yeah, are you resurrecting, but I'm hearing something new.
correct, this one is, we approved 200,000 plus the other 2 items as the Board of Finance for them to spend. It was for the oil tank replacement.
Which is in the bus company contract.
So I did ask him, although we didn't approve it for all this technology, we approved a smaller amount of technology.
68 or 63,000.
Yeah, when we did our approval to go to the town vote. So these are additional Chromebooks to go up to the 190,000.
Yeah, and the change is this is a substantial change that's occurred
Of what-
since the rejection of the budget.
of
So I
what the
think
money would be
it
spent
puts it in a different category from what I was raising before.
Yeah,
Well, it's the same bottom line of the,
It
same
is.
bottom line cost, but it's just, instead of the money the whole 200 coming from the oil tank replacement because the bus company paid it,
Right.
they're then taking what would have been spent there and just adding it onto the technology piece to be able to increase that, because from my understanding, similar to the fire tanks, you're gonna at some point have to continue to add these into the capital, and while we have that money because we saved on the oil tank, why not spend it now?
And you won't see that specific technology, this sheet, if approved, come through as a capital request like this for fiscal year 27. So it's reallocating that money differently.
so on this sheet though, the source of funds, which has been Tom's question, the source of funds for the 200,000 would have been the SIP fund balance, interest capital fund originally, and now it would be out of unallocated capital. So it would be out of a different bucket for that, the increased technology now. The other 2 items that he's proposing would be out of the
Yeah,
same place.
so I think we have maybe the process hang up on the other 2. I don't think we have it on this one.
Yeah. Depending on what we vote on all this stuff, we'll have to get we'll have to get an opinion on that one.
I mean, so I guess my question there is say whatever vote happens for this, do we have, like, say we have to shift money around to be able to make whatever happen, because it can't come from the allocated bucket because it was voted down, so it has to come from this bucket. Do we have the funds all the way around to like make that happen? Or is once we vote on this and say we vote whatever, are we not gonna have the funds after we have that conversation because there's only so much money in one bucket versus another bucket?
We would have to relook at all of the source of funds that Jason put down here, because if that did stand, what Con was saying, then we would have to make sure that we relooked at everything and where the source of funds was. Cause there's certain items that there's not gonna be enough probably in the fund balance but we would have to look at that and verify.
Okay, and then we'd have to figure it out or come to another vote at that point?
Yep.
Okay, but we can still vote on it now temporarily.
I don't know that we'll need to temporarily, if we have to ask the question, we'll have to wait and see. And that's why it was good that we got the fire department transfer separate, cause that was an emergency need. If this one needs to wait until January, it's
Yeah.
not as big of an issue.
Okay. Alright, thanks.
Just to chime in briefly, I think Carl might be able to give us a little bit of help in regards to the type of motions or votes that we would be taking if we're moving more capital forward. We had a petition to a referendum. We went to referendum, we passed the budget. That budget was both capital and operating. So what we're talking about here are additional capital items that were not passed at that budget. So we're squarely in that territory.
Capital was never passed.
Oh, yeah, it was $119,000 for, LoCIP was passed. It was part of that, was clearly described in that budget. So what you have here is not something like, you had the moderator open up a town meeting, close a town meeting, adjourn to referendum. That referendum required votes on both, based upon the operation of the Board of Finance and the adoption of the Board of Selectmen, that both the operating and capital be voted on. They were voted on, that your 25, 26 budget is done. What we're talking about here is, hey, we've got some needs here, let's try to vote to try to address those needs. That's what we're talking about.
But he's come up with a different source of revenue, right? He's got 200,000 unspent. Because we discovered that we didn't need that for the tank. That was covered
Yeah,
by the school board, so that money, it seems to me, is something new. It was not a part of the budget issue. And it seems that we could allocate that 200,000 at this point. Reallocate, yeah.
So because technically it wasn't voted down.
It wasn't voted down.
So Carl spoke out.
How was it not voted down?
It was approved.
We approved it.
It was in the budget as voted on by the electorate. And it turned out that it didn't have to be spent because the school bus company was going to pay for it, which we didn't know at the time, right? So we put it in there to take care of the tank removal.
Which leaves 200,000 on the table to be reallocated.
Which leaves the 200,000 on the table.
So it's almost like we never voted on the 200,000 because the 200,000 never really came into play because the bus company covered the 200,000.
Yeah, we had approved it, and it was approved in the budget, as I understand it. But we don't need it, so now it's open.
And when it was approved, it was unknowing that the $200,000 was gonna be paid by the bus company at the time. So it was approved unknowing that money was not gonna be paid.
And it was approved by the Board of Finance, but not by the town. It wasn't voted in the budget.
The 200,000 was not.
No, capital got all turned down, except for apparently Jason saying $119,000.
The referendum that was petitioned has been satisfied. You guys passed the budget, both operating and capital, it was passed. Any additional requests that you are attempting to move forward here are new requests, mid-year requests, whether they are items that were presented before, or 10 years before, or brand new items that you guys have never addressed. You guys are attempting to be able to get funding for these items, you're gonna put it out to town meeting and get stuff approved. That's what you're doing. It is not tied to the 25-26 budget. That's done. Town meeting happened, it was adjourned, so this is, yeah.
That's what I think,
Yeah.
no matter what the source of funds.
Yeah, the source of funds, I don't think matters. I mean, obviously, you wanna try to determine the source of funds when you're putting it out there, so the taxpayers at the town meeting know exactly where you're pulling the funds from.
Right.
But there's no,
Yep,
I don't know how.
okay, on to the next, thank you guys. All right, the next one is the Noden Reed Barn. Jim, we're finally to you. Lori is gonna come up too. And what we mean by the Noden Reed Farm, just so everybody's aware, if you go into Noden Reed, the barn is on the right, and it's the big barn. It's not with the greenhouse and the little garage. What we're talking about now is money that was allocated to the Newton Reed barn. Two things we're gonna look for here is, one, money that was in our budget that got voted down by the townspeople for that barn. But what we're first gonna talk about is money that is in the capital for what is already voted in and voted in by the town, and where did that money go?
Okay.
So, go ahead,
Right.
Jim.
Well, all this started from, an engineering report we had done in 2017. Okay, that's for all the work that needs to be done that's been generating the funds that have been spent. In fiscal year 2023-24, I had asked for $562,000 to continue the work. It got pared down in the board to 310, okay. So on July 1st, I called Mandy and I said, do I have 310 to work with? And she said, yes. And I said, how does it go? She said, well, I don't know, call Paul Harrington. So I called Paul Harrington and I said, how does it go? He said, call Mandy. So I did the next best thing, I went down to see Phil Sissick
There you go.
and explained to him what was going on. He says, I'll call Mike Weisbrod from Kroski, we'll meet over there and we'll talk about what needs to be done. But between that July and 2023, it took until January of 2024, and the only thing that got done was the roof.
Yep.
Okay, and then that cost $56,180, leaving me $253,820. So we had Mike Weisbrod come back up from Kroski. My big concern was the wetness of the floor in the barn, because oftentimes when we have a cold snap, I can't slide a door open. The floor's heaving and pushing. So it was agreed between Phil Sissick and Mike Weisbrod and myself that this is something that we should address. Then everybody quit, okay, and left. And,
Nothing's moved forward
nothing
since
has
then.
moved forward. And then they did the big Spring Street job, and that was their staging area, right there at Reed Farm, so we couldn't have done the work if we wanted to.
Right.
So I just wanna make sure that this
253.
253,820 is secure.
So, Jason, I tried to run a report in capital and I couldn't find it, and I think Devin, you haven't been able to see it. Do we have that 254?
It's in the, should be in your packet.
Okay. So, Devin, beyond knowing that you have that, you've met with Jim to talk about what needs to be done and what they wanna do with that first amount of money, right?
I've met with Jim, Jim and I have talked about several things, but I've also met with Mike Weisbrod again. He's going through the process of preparing contract documents so we can go on RFP, get the work done. He's developed, a base bid and 7 alternates, depending on how the bids come back. Kind of gives us like an a la carte, method of doing some of the work. So if we have X number of dollars, we can go through there, do the base bid, and then as many alternates as we can afford, that make sense. I'm not saying that the alternates will go in order of alternate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe the dollar amount makes sense. We're gonna do alternate 1, 3, and 4. But to give us the ability and some flexibility in the bidding process to be able to get as much done as we can, pending the amount of funding we have available.
Okay.
I did look in, Munis shows, I believe, $230-something thousand, for the barn, unless there's another account that I'm not seeing.
It's 244,896 right now.
And that have the account numbers on them, Jason?
Yeah, so in your packet, there's a printout, it's two-sided.
Devin, do you want
I've
this?
got it on the screen here.
I don't need it, do you want it?
Yeah.
It's got the account numbers that has the money, the capital shows.
It's probably something I may already have, but
So,
I can get them.
yeah, so, I don't know, like, what's that, the 7th line up, it's 36, 43, 480.
Yep.
The project is 24,001. as, you know, it was 244,000.
Okay.
What's left in it.
So that covers your first question. You know where the money is, it's there, you can spend it, Devin can start some work on it.
Well, I'm gonna leave it up to Devin.
Okay,
That's why we get guys like Mike Westbrook. I'm not an engineer,
yep,
you know? I just wanna see the thing get done right.
you know what has to be done, you can see the stuff,
Yeah,
and
you
they
can
can
see
tell
it.
you best
Yeah.
what really should be
And I
done.
know he's got his hands full.
Okay,
But I would add just that total $560,000 package will roll forward to your budget request as part of the requests by the historical commission. So in the spreadsheet with the color, there's,
Yeah.
you know, rough 200 and change dollars requested,
Yep.
of which 119 has already been allocated, so the final piece of that original request of the 560 is still for your consumption. So the gray line above the maroon line on the historical section, the gray line, it's already been approved. It's the 100 and change right below that.
so talk to me about that already being approved, Jason.
So as part of, if you, the budget flyer discloses where we spend our money. You've got Schedule D, which is the last page of that budget flyer, which states what items we're buying from a capital standpoint. The only item that was in there was the fact that we receive LoCIP money every year.
Mhm.
LoCIP money was 119,000, so that gets approved from a capital standpoint.
So this was different from all the other capital items that were voted down at the town referendum. This 119,000 was a separate item, is that what you're saying? Because we pulled the whole capital question out.
The answer is yes, and the reason why is because the 119 was included as a revenue source, and then we had the same 119 as an expense. All of the other items that we're talking about for capitals, it was not set up like that. 'Cause
Okay.
Historically, it's LoCIP funds, and that's the way, right or wrong, that's the way we've budgeted, is LoCIP as revenue, and then the same amount as an expense for a specific project that
Okay.
qualifies.
So that thank you, Mike. So that 119 on this sheet is okay.
It's already
That-
done, yep.
And the 110, is that what it says?
Yep.
110,268?
That's the maroon, is it?
Yeah.
Great color.
Does that have to go then with the rest of this capital items we're talking about? Or can that be approved with the revenue source?
So I think the answer is, this is also identified as LoCIP related funds. So because it's 2017 to 2025, I believe the program operated differently in those years. Historically, you would have to, I think, like, you know, come up with the funds yourself and then seek reimbursement, and assuming the project qualified, you'd get reimbursement. Going forward, it's a little bit different. The governmental agency just sends the money at some point, and then you just have to make sure that you use it for an approved qualifying project.
So that short period of time, they did it where you had to spend your money and ask for it back?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
The 2017 to 25. Okay, and Devin, that's the way you understand it.
So there were two programs. There was the entitlement program, which was 2023 and prior, which was exactly how Mike described it. You applied for a project, you got authorized to do that project authorization letter, through OPM, and once you did the project, you submitted a reimbursement. It didn't have to be complete, you could submit reimbursements at periods through the project, but you fronted the money, they paid you back. The new program is now a grant program. There's no requirement that we seek approval for the project. It's up to us to determine if the project meets the LoCIP guidelines. And then by June 30th, we have to report to them. Actually, I want to say we get the money on June 30th, and then by September 30th, we have to report how we spent the money the previous year.
Okay.
If that makes sense, if I'm saying that.
And from a LoCIP standpoint, it's $636,000 of LoCIP funds that we have never submitted project requests for to state.
In the entitlement program, there's still money from what I gather, there may still be money available in the LoCIP grant program. 1 year's worth is this 119,000.
Okay.
The 119 is not available, in other words, it's already been earmarked for a specific project.
Correct.
Not saying you should know that,
But there should be 119 from 2024 and 2025 as well.
So if you look at if you wanna go back to the prior year, it's 119 is this year. Last year was the first year of the grant program, I'd have to go to the 24 grant budget, or 24 budget to take a look at what it was earmarked for. I don't have it off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at it. We're looking at stuff going forward.
So this one, the 119 that we said is already approved, says LoSiP 2026.
Correct.
Has that already been spent, the gray area, has that money been spent or just
Nope.
allocated?
It's been
Just allocated.
allocated,
Okay.
appropriated.
And that's what we're seeing on that munis line, for the, Northern Reed stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So then, Jason, the 110, 268 would take it to the total amount that they were told of, okay.
Whether that's a good number from where it started in 2017, who knows, but
In my conversations with Mike Weisbrod, I was asking did he do any unit price analysis on it, and he said his isn't current. He didn't do anything recently, so, I think when they originally started this project way back when, was before COVID, was before inflation, was
Yes.
before all of this, so any
Yes.
unit pricing he did back then, we should throw out the window. And at this rate, I mean, we can ask him to do some unit pricing, but the proof will be in the pudding when we get the bids.
Okay.
and I think we're up for curtain drain. Devin, that was sort of like the last place where he left off.
Well, it's curtain drain, damp proofing, some other, improvements, paving the parking lot, a couple other things, and then those are all listed in those alternates on the bid package.
So Jason, then when we're looking at the totals on here, does the 119 stay on here? I mean, we don't have to do anything with that. That's been approved, right?
That has been approved, it's been broken out there, it's part of the total, but perhaps we should just delete it from the sheet, but try to put as much data on the
Yep.
sheet as possible.
But I wanna make sure that what I'd asked for, and I know you guys were looking at something different, was come to that 1.75. I didn't wanna go over that. So if the 119 is already accounted for somewhere, that can come out of the total.
Yep.
But they still get the money?
Yep.
Okay, but the 110, we would have to now have as part of, if we decide to move this stuff forward, have as part of our vote. But people need to understand, that doesn't come out of our general fund, our tax dollars. This is all money from the state for this LoSiP program.
Alright.
We get the revenue, we spend it on this.
And we wouldn't be able to spend, from my understanding, there isn't really any other projects that we could spend it on, there's like specific projects that you have to spend that money on.
Well, it's, when you say there isn't any other projects, the Node and Reed isn't the only project they can spend it for, but it has to be a project that's approved out of the LoSiP program.
Okay, but we couldn't use it, I don't know, we couldn't use it
We
for.
could use it for Chromebooks.
Yeah, something like that, okay.
Yep. That's all in Devin's head, as to what could be.
I mean, there are requirements listed in the LoSiP guidelines, but the LoSiP is the local capital improvement program, it needs to be a capital project. And there's also other requirements, if it falls within a floodplain, you need deep approval, so it's kind of the danger of the grant program is that you can go spend money and then tell them what you spent it on, and they may go, hey, that didn't really qualify. But it's up to us to make sure that we're spending it in a way that meets the guidelines.
You had just mentioned that some of the money was gonna be used for paving the parking lot.
The bid package that Weisbrod is preparing, one of the alternates in that bid package is paving the turnaround in front of the barn and the parking lot behind it.
We just took that all up, cause we thought it was contributing to the water problem. But the one down behind it on the west side, I think the contractor that was using it should probably repave that, if you can get them to do it.
That might be a tough sell.
Probably
but
not.
I can try, but we'd have to be able to prove to him that it wasn't,
Oh, I can get you pictures of what that parking lot looked like before he got there.
yeah.
Yeah,
He ripped that place to crap, pulled out all the curbs, there's big huge chunks of asphalt missing that are now potholes. And two, I will agree that the section closest to the fence was a mess, but he made the front part of it even worse. However, considering who the contractor is, do you wanna spend your time and energy fighting with a loser? I doubt it.
Well, it sounds like you guys will be meeting to discuss
Yeah.
this a little bit more, so you can do that without us.
Yeah.
Did you have another question, John?
Nope, that was all.
Anybody comments, questions, anything else anybody wants to add on this? Think we're good?
What action are
Thank
we
you.
looking for today? Anything? Or is this just a report?
Verification that the money's there.
The 110, I think, is what's gonna be part of our discussion.
Yeah.
That'll be the last bit that
But the
they
two forty-four is there.
is there. Yeah,
Okay.
he's got it now, so
All right.
you're good with that. That was the one you couldn't get the answer to.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
good,
you.
thanks, guys. Okay, the next one that wasn't on here is fire. The stuff that was on here when it went to a town vote is the only one you added, John, or, Jason, is the facility refurbishment?
Yeah, Devin gave me information regarding what we believe were estimates to be able to address some of the more serious issues for that building.
Okay, hold on, we'll
That-
talk about it in a minute.
Yeah.
But that's the only new one you added here, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the other things that were on here that the Board of Finance approved was the e-hydraulic rescue tool. We did not approve the apparatus replacement. This is the new sheet. You have the old one, right? The one that we actually voted on? Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, Mike. The SCBA bottle replacements, that's the 34, so we did that with the transfer, so that won't be part of our discussion. And then there was SCBA replacements on the next line.
That got pushed off to 27.
Okay. Then there was facility refurbishment was the one that you were talking about.
Yeah,
And we'll-
12-2, yeah.
And then office furniture replacement, we did not approve. So do you wanna talk about the, so the 100,000, oh, because it wasn't part of that. The 100,000 is in the third column over.
Yeah, column H, it says revised request 2026-12-2. That's what the Board of Selectmen discussed, recommended, et cetera, that column.
So that, were they saying 150,000 total? The 50,000 that you've got?
No, it's 200,000 total.
Oh, right.
150.
28, okay, 150, okay. So 200,000 total, very ballpark, for the facility refurbishment. Go ahead.
I can speak to it a little if you want.
Sure.
When I started here, the fire commission had a list of 38 items that were deficiencies in the department as it stands right now, like immediate needs. And I went through and kind of did an assessment of the building. We didn't go as far as getting like specific quotes for stuff, but they were kind of shot from the hip numbers and totaled up into the $90-something thousand range to try and meet some of the needs that they saw were more immediate needs. Also recognizing that the building has been poorly maintained for a number of years, so moving forward, we should continue to invest more into doing some larger, I'm gonna call them capital projects for that building. All in the meantime, we're seeking a grant to get a planning grant so we can look at the building from, holistic, what do we do with this thing, 5 years now, 10 years from now, and is this thing, is the building feasible, is it structurally sound? The building was built in the 70s, so it's already, nearly 60 years old, and where do we go moving forward? But the immediate need was this list of items. We've already knocked out a number of them, more than a dozen, less than 2 dozen of these items in our current budget. Unfortunately, it means I think we're gonna be coming back to you guys to talk about a transfer because some of these things were immediate needs. But
And you have that all listed out.
I do, but I need to go through the process to give you a formal request for a transfer for that.
From within your own budget.
Geez, I sure hope so. And I know that's the answer you're looking for, Mike, and I hope that's the answer I can give you when we actually run the numbers.
I have faith.
I'll do my best. But in the same aspect, there's a bunch of things that we didn't do, that were, you know, the building's not in great shape, so if the fire department's gonna continue to operate on it, there's some of these things that we need to address, sooner rather than later. That being, you know, within that $100,000 dollar amount.
And we do appreciate that, we do appreciate trying to find it within your budget. The issue we have, and Mike, I'm sure you'll agree with this, is spending the money, emergency or not, before that money has been allocated is a big no-no according to the charter. Nobody gets to make that decision, it's gotta come to us,
I don't disagree with you at all.
okay? Alright, so that is the fire department, it would be the 67,000 and the 100,000.
And the 34,000. Subject to.
34,000 we already handled with the transfer.
Yeah, that was gonna be separate,
Okay.
yeah.
That's why I was confused about the 27,000 there on Jason, but that got moved, you said, to 27.
Or at least as part of the last deliberation by the Board of Finance.
Yep. And you put in here the revised request of the office furniture replacement. So they're just saying, as long as we're going back to the well, let's try it on that again. So I wanna make clear how much when we get to the bottom, how much we're actually asking for here. I don't think we're gonna end up voting on anything tonight, I think it's still too up in the air. That there's a few more things we gotta go through. So if there's any emergencies in here, or if there's ones we know are set well, that we could go to the same town meeting with, we'll discuss that after we go through the whole list, so. So Jason, what confuses me on this for fire, and I didn't necessarily notice it on the other, whoop, did it die?
Nope.
Okay. The 1.5 million that you have in column 3, revised request, you're not really requesting it in 26, cause it's moved to 27. So having that 1.5 million in
Yeah,
both spots,
It's,
Is that the rescue truck?
that's the rescue truck. And again, when we put everything, we didn't know whether we should include that and that number in there, or whether everything's going back on the table. So we put everything back on the table, and then you guys can pull it back off of that. We didn't know how to do this, we're not, I've never worked with sort of a mid-year appropriation like this. But that was important to be able to disclose that those dollars are there. No one's told me that they don't need the rescue truck. But you did not approve that the last time. You didn't approve the SCBA replacements, and you didn't approve the office furniture.
right?
The office furniture went away completely. The SCBA replacements, which are the backpacks, not the bottles, got moved out 1 year, and the 1.5 for the apparatus replacement got moved out a year.
And I get that, I do get that, I just, when we get to the bottom and we're trying to look for the total number that we're looking at,
Yep.
this is, it's not there yet, where we'll be able to see that.
Correct.
Okay, that's it for fire, anybody, any comments on the fire stuff? Okay, next one is police department that we're gonna look at. I did talk to the chief today, and I haven't been able to talk to, Jamie Tarbell, because, I had to get emails and they didn't all go through properly. But, talking about this vehicle, I said to him, is it a vehicle you would wanna still put forward in our discussions for 26, or would that be moved to 27? He said if it moved to 27, they would have to ask for 2 vehicles in 27, cause they still do need 2, 1 and 1. Then the next one, he said, was the amount of maintenance they have to do on some of the vehicles because they're old. His maintenance line is probably gonna be over. And we would just run into more trouble if we didn't at least consider one this year. So I would leave that on the line item for ones that we're looking at this year for discussion. Snowden Reed, Barton talked about. Public Works.
Get on up here, Devin.
Yeah. I would be remiss in not.
Hold on one second.
Are they married?
Jason, are you gonna fill,
Are they
you guys
married?
already talked, Steve, you talked with
Wanna
John,
just
you're
drive
okay with
together?
him? Okay.
No.
All right, thanks, cause I knew it was on the agenda, I wanted to make sure.
I just wanna make sure.
Came together, they're leaving
Okay.
together.
There's
Yep.
there's nothing to share.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thanks, Doug. All right, Devin, go ahead.
I'm not sure if you're looking at the same sheet that I am, but if you're going down the order, it seems that we skipped over the fire marshal vehicle replacement. I don't know if that's.
You're right, we did, we absolutely did, cause that's a different one, but at the end, I'm gonna do the ones that are the single items.
I didn't want,
Mike coming after you?
Galley to think we forgot about him.
We did not, we have Kona, town clerk, park and rec, and fire marshal still at the end.
So, Public Works.
You're picking up at truck body repair, line 51, going down from there, Joe.
I have line 51 is stand on mowers. Am I wrong? Am I looking at a different sheet than you are?
I don't know what the line number is, but that's our first one with dollars in it.
First one with dollars, 27 stand-on mowers.
Right. Correct. Much like the other departments, we're in this cycle of we have to replace equipment at certain intervals, otherwise we fall behind, and then at some point we're asking for, you know, more than what we should be asking for in a year. Stand-on mowers is one of them. In fact, one of our stand-on mowers actually blew an engine, in the middle of October, in the middle of leaf season. So both of them are both of the ones that we're talking about replacing are unbelievably old, and the mechanics are at the point where they're like trying to piece things together just to get them through leaf season. So both of the stand-on mowers and the zero-turn mowers are kind of critical for the Parks Department to keep doing the level of service we need to. Same thing with the six-wheel plow truck. The plow truck we're looking at is a 2006 plow truck. I know the sticker shock of $325,000 for a plow truck. It's like, oh, is that really what these things cost? Unfortunately, that is exactly what these things cost. A lot of towns have 8 to 12 year replacement cycles on their plow trucks. Keeping in mind that these are the trucks that go out in the worst weather. They all the salt that erodes our cars, these are the vehicles that hold that salt, so they get eroded faster than anything. And if we replace that plow truck every other year, we have a 16-year replacement cycle on a plow truck. So I mean, the one we're looking at replacement is a 2006. If I order a plow truck today, it's a year to 18 months before I see one. So this thing will be over 20 years old by the time we actually get to replace it. Public Works vehicle is a pickup truck. This was the one that I had come to the Board of Finance previously on, and we talked about it back then. The dollar amount has crept up. At the time we were proposing an F-150. Speaking with the selectmen, they would prefer to make that a vehicle we could attach a plow to, so in the case of an emergency, we could use it. Likewise, it would be, once I'm done with it, we could cycle it into the fleet as a spare versus an F-150 that, really, other than maybe the building department, we wouldn't have a use for after the fact. So they asked me to look at a number that would be something more in the line of an F-250 that we could put a plow on and use when it's one of those all hands on deck snowstorms.
So this paper I have has no numbers on, no lines. I don't know which line you're on.
Sorry, I'm in the Public Works equipment.
So yellow is the color.
Yeah, the plow truck is the yellow one that says 325,000. And then the one underneath it is it says PW vehicle new 12.2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So your subtotal for equipment is the same as it was for what the Board of Finance approved to go to the town, except for the 70,000, that's new. Other than that, it matches back to what you approved. You moved, you didn't move, but it was moved, the plow truck town share 32.5 was moved into the total for, the six-wheel plow truck there. But basically, it's the same.
It's
except
the
for
same dollar amount. I think the only other change that happened was the funding source for the plow truck was 90% out of town aid road and 10% out of, help me out, Jason.
Yeah, 10% out of unallocated capital. And generally, I think that sort of clears Devin to just
Go.
Closer to like, I'm just rough guessing here, like $2 million or something like that? Is that how
So-
we would look at it?
I kinda have to go back on my brain here. I believe we have to appropriate the money, so we have to say we're gonna spend the money. The grant allocation comes to us at a certain period of time after the project authorization letter is signed. Depending on how, the timing of bidding and whatnot, the last 2 lots of projects I did, we got the check for $4.7 million before we even started the project. So we weren't dipping into our general fund necessarily to do it, but part of the certification in order to agree to receive the grant funds is we have to agree that we've appropriated the dollar amount, even though the source of the revenue for that is not, our annual budget or our own capital improvement budget. I don't know if that makes sense, if I'm explaining that well.
No, that makes sense. So then, I guess my follow-up question to that, for how like the property tax or the evaluation of it or whatever would work is, we would still basically have to vote on the total, $8 million or whatever, and then how would that $5 million grant impact things if we receive it?
You would show that as a revenue on the revenue side, and obviously if the grant didn't come through, we don't do the projects. We just don't do it.
Okay.
So,
And it would be just a 10% you'd be out.
And that doesn't mean, if we don't get the grant award on the first round, I go back next year. If we don't get it that round, I go back the year after. If we don't get it there, I start looking at other grants, like we can kick the can whichever way we wanna kick it. There does become a certain point where, okay, the road just needs to get reconstructed, and if we're not having success with these grants, we need to fund it. I am pretty confident that we're gonna be able to get a grant for this. Like I said, it may not be the first round, but
2 things.
I'd buy a lunch on it.
2 things. One, as part of the lot SIP criteria, do they take into account like the financial situation of the town? In other words, during the last administration, our Moody's bond rating went away. We've got 1 audit that's late. Within a month, we're gonna have a second audit that won't be considered late, but it'll be on extension. And then 6 months from then, it'll be late. Like, does lot SIP say, hey, that's a problem, or they say, we don't care, it's okay?
So they care that we can progress projects, and the reason I brought up the last 2 projects,
They care that we can progress, so the answer would be no, they don't care.
they don't care, and I don't believe, there's nothing on their rating guidelines that
Okay.
cares about our Moody's rating.
Okay.
But they do take into consideration how many projects we have in the kitty, how many projects they've
Okay.
funded for us that we haven't
Okay.
completed. So we do have one that is completed. We need to submit the closeout documents with it, and part of that includes some accounting relative to the audit. The other one that is not completed is the Main Street reconstruction north of the historic train station. They understand the situation that we were in. The original proposal was a roundabout there,
Mhm.
and the town simply didn't want it.
Yeah.
So the project stalled,
Yeah.
and it kind of went on a back burner.
Okay, so then I guess that my second question would be, like, personally, if you need to bump the engineering from 70,000 to 500,000 in order to get a $5 million grant, I would support that.
That's what I'm
Absolutely.
asking for.
Okay, however, but you still have an issue, because you said it yourself, the $5 million does not complete the project, right? That's the cap of the grant. You're asking for an addition, I'm rounding, but you're asking for an additional 2.5 million, and you're suggesting that we go out and bond it. That's the problem, I know we still have S&P, right, but they're probably right around the corner.
I
So
don't know where you're
Moody's,
getting
we don't have a bond
2.5
rating
from.
for, and we're late on the audits, like, that's gonna be a problem from a Wall Street perspective. So, my suggestion is, I support, we'll figure out where to get the 500,000 from, so you can go out and try to get the 5 million. but I think you could, not saying you personally, but the group, the team, you gotta find a different spot for this 2.5 million, because I don't see a bonding issuance coming anytime soon, that's just me, right? You wanna bring Barry Barnaby in here, our municipal advisor, and if he tells us something different, no problem, but until I hear it from him, I wouldn't recommend any bonding.
So even beyond that, Mike, I mean, the 2.5 that you said you didn't know where he gets it from, so it's these other lines in green on here, right?
Yeah, and those are different projects. So the.
Right, but
Well-
it's what we would have to bond for.
Right.
If these went through. So if you're saying we could do the one that we can get the LOTSIP grant back, but not do these other three,
You have to, no, it's,
that's what it's for.
right.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So it is all part of the same
Yes,
project.
you need, I mean.
And
streets-
this 5 million,
Yeah,
you'd have to still bond for that, even though it's showing lots
No,
of,
you don't have to bond for it. We just have to appropriate that we're gonna spend the money.
but where would we get it from to spend it? How could we say we could if we didn't have a
That
plan for
revenue.
it? The revenue.
The revenue becomes, we're appropriating the money because we're gonna
Gotcha,
spend it.
then
but
you
we're
said
not-
if we
$5
didn't, we
million in
wouldn't do
revenue,
it.
5 million in expense, that's what we would do?
Right.
Okay.
Like
we do for-
the 2.5, so,
Yep.
and again, we're looking at a number here of 6.028. I can't speak to where that number came from, right?
Okay.
Until the engineer gets far enough
Yeah.
along in design, it could be 8 million, it could be
Yeah.
3 million. It's gonna be more than 5 million, and at that point, it may make more sense to phase the project. So say if the project's 9 million, okay, well, we phase it, so we do, half of it under one LOTSIP application, half of it under another. When I did Leonard Road in Stafford, it was 3 phases, because it was such an expensive project, we phased it that way, so we could get it done, within our fiscal constraints. If the whole thing comes up to 5,500,000 and we need to come up with 500 grand, maybe we don't wanna phase it, maybe we wanna
Right.
find but we don't really know what that number is until we get a certain period into the design. That 10% for the application, we will have a rough cost estimate by the engineer, and that typically grows from there. That typically doesn't get less.
Yeah.
The 6.028 million, I'm suspecting that was Phil did a unit price analysis. He went up and did things like counted how many catch basins and looked at how much pipe it is and used the unit price for, okay, it's, $8,000 per catch basin. And he did that with all of the aspects of reconstructing that. And that's where that 6.028 came from,
Well,
which is a valid way of doing it.
But hold on, what you said, sure, maybe that's valid, but we talked about this at a previous meeting, although I know you got a lot going on. One of the ridiculous assumptions that was included in this, what originally was like a $28 million road project over 5 years, there was a ridiculous assumption of a 10% increase, inflationary increase in perpetuity, right? That is an unreasonable assumption anywhere in the country, right? Anywhere. So that's why I had asked you, it's okay if you don't have time right now, but I had asked you to go back and take a look at all of that 28 million of road projects, right? To see, does that make sense? And I understand you can't pinpoint it, just like Phil couldn't pinpoint it, right? But there's gotta be some reasonableness, because now we're in year 3, right? So there's been a couple of these 10% escalators, which I personally think are ridiculous.
So I
That's
think,
my
I think
concern.
DOT's authorized inflation when they plan, it's like 5 or 6%.
Okay.
So yeah, 10% seems ridiculous. From 2020 to 2022, it was more like 40. So over a long
Yeah,
enough
but
timeline, it does.
COVID's long gone.
Right.
Long
Right.
gone, but believe it or not, gone.
Right, and I couldn't agree with you more. 10% I think is high.
Okay.
Right now, I'm still looking at in year 1, we'll get, once I have a little more time and a little more,
I mean,
I'm not so green in the
Yeah.
tunnel winds of locks, we'll get further
don't get
into
me
the other
wrong,
ones.
this is great news, right? This is like, cause all we hear about is we got financial problems with insurance and payroll, this is great news. I appreciate it, thank you. But I just wanna make sure that if we go down this road, if the group is in agreement, that, we make sure we know what we're up against, cause there is this other bonding amount, which makes me very nervous.
Agreed, so,
I'd throw out there, Mike, that you really have 2 pieces of it. You've got authorized but unissued
Mhm.
debt that could cover this specifically because of Spring Street, because we chose not to bond that piece of Spring Street, but we were authorized, it's my understanding. Again, I wasn't there when all those votes occurred.
Right.
But it's my understanding that you have some authorized unissued for
Yeah.
roadway work.
Yeah.
I haven't tied it out to the remainder of the dollars that sit there.
No, you're right, it's like
Yeah.
it's like $4.5 million, it's
Yeah.
been authorized by the legislative body, but we haven't actually gone out to Wall Street and
Oh, yeah.
issued those bonds.
Correct.
Right now, I mean,
Just let me throw,
Yeah.
all I'm doing is just trying to throw some information out
Yep.
there, Mike, I'm not trying to say this
Yeah.
is the way we should do it, just for
Yep.
informational purposes. We have up to 3 years in arrears, that means we can spend the money and within 3 years bond out of it,
Yeah.
and then you have 3 years in advance, meaning that you can pass a bonding, and then you have up to 3, and issue the debt
Yep.
3 years in advance.
Yeah.
So by saying, I'm really hoping that we can hit the timelines as we prescribed with our auditor, and OPM, that we're not going back 3 years and we're not looking 3 years forward to be able to complete the 24-25 audit. Now, I can't, project in the future,
Yeah.
but, I don't think it's, we can't even consider bonding 3 years from now as an option to take a look at, to be able to fund some of these road projects,
Yeah.
right? I understand your reticence, right, hey, don't have the audits done, can't say for certain that those dollars are sitting there. However, I think it's gotta be on the plate as an option. Again, you wanna be conservative, this is talking about getting new authorizations when you already have existing authorizations for dollars, right? And I think that would be part of the mix. And the fact that this is in green was just the starting point.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be, it could be
Right.
in purple or orange, or
Right,
whatever
that's
color makes
suggestion,
sense,
right.
yeah.
Right, I would just be careful about the authorized but unissued, it's very specific as
Oh,
to
yeah,
what it can be
very
used from,
specific.
so. I don't know if like from Main Street, the volunteer is in there, but
Yeah.
I don't know if we wanna
It's-
go much.
It's provided
west.
it's provided for general road work when the vote occurs, but I recognize it's very, very specific.
Well, not a discussion for the, but I get it, but you're right, I agree with you, there was authorized but unissued monies there. Whether it can be used for these specific roads, I don't know, but fair to look into or consider.
Okay, any other questions on that for the public works side? Do you wanna talk to the town hall parking lot one, and we're on the selectmen room now, and that's got renovations, town hall parking lot. I don't know if you wanna talk to those?
And again, kind of falling in on this midstream on somebody else's, plans. My understanding is 136,000 was for repaving the town hall parking lot. I recognize that there's a drainage issue in the town hall parking lot we need to address prior to that. So right now you can't park on that side of the parking lot because all the water that comes off the roof has nowhere to go besides across the parking lot.
Right.
It creates an icing issue and heaves and so on and so forth, so, that's something we should be fixing as part of this project. I don't know if that includes that, my guess is that it probably does, given the dollar amount, but we gotta do something with it, we can't leave it like this forever.
I know we talked about it during that, whether it was in that 136 or not, we'd have to prove out, but it seems like it was.
It seems like a reasonable dollar amount for us to progress something to at least fix that problem and get some repaving done, if not all of it.
Yep.
Again, if the allocation is $136,000, I'm gonna do everything I can possibly do with $136,000 and not a dollar more.
Okay, and that was, look, the source on that one was also bonding, right?